That's often wealth at the expense of the planet. So it's potentially quite short term. So if we redefine wealth as an abundance of clean air, an abundance of clean water, an abundance of clean food, sensible houses, warmth, friendship, and community, you get the same thing, right? Well, I'm really wealthy. I've got endless amounts of fresh air. None of it's polluted. The water I can drink anywhere. It's absolutely gorgeous. There's fresh fruit everywhere. All the fruit and all the vegetables and all the herbs and all the medicinals are all free. I've got it anywhere I go. My houses are great. They cool themselves, warm themselves, catch their own water, and they're made out of natural materials, and they're easy to replace, and they last a long time. And everybody's friendly, and I've got loads of friends, and we've got loads of community, and we all hang out together and sing songs, and we're all happy all the time. Well, you're wealthy, aren't you? Well, isn't that what we're all want to be, right? That's what, billionaires are trying to make out of their money. But often you find billionaires are not wealthy. They're really unhappy and never satisfied.
Welcome back to the Passing Through podcast. This week, I am passing through Czech Republic in beautiful foresty mountains. We've been hiking and spending time together, sharing meals, dancing, sharing stories, and it's just been an all-around beautiful time in nature with trees and water and birds and bees and flowers and all of those lovely things that are so alive right now in the spring. And because I don't want to bore you with all of those details, I just want to cut right to the chase and talk about this week's guest. This week's guest needs no introduction. He is a permaculture legend. I had the honor of speaking to the incredible Geoff Lawton, who has been building sustainable ecosystems since before I was even born. For longer than I've been alive, he's been designing sustainable systems for soil, water, plants, animals, energy capture, housing, you name it. Geoff's passionate about addressing our global food and water crises. He is one of the pioneers of the people greening the desert, which if you've never heard about that, that is literally a thing that Geoff does. He goes into degraded ecosystems that for all intents and purposes, I believed were at the end of a geological cycle, and he revitalizes them, he regenerates them, he makes them green again. He is an educator. He has taught thousands of students about permaculture. And to be able to sit down and speak to him was a real honor, a gift, a blessing. It's something that I'm very grateful for. I had the opportunity to meet Geoff and work with him last year in Hungary. And that time that we spent together there was really something memorable and special, and something that I'm very grateful for. So I hope that all of you will be grateful for this talk. Geoff knows so much about nature and permaculture, and not only is he very knowledgeable, but he is very easy to speak to. He's a great storyteller. He can light up a room with his charisma and his natural gift for describing natural phenomenon. And in our talk, we talk about his work greening the desert in Jordan. We talk about indigenous wisdoms in the face of colonial erasure. We talk about interrogating and redefining our notions of wealth as a people. We talk about how our technology contributes to a loss not just of our environment, but our ability to thrive inside of it. We talk about natural swimming pools, and we talk about a lot of things in this conversation, and I think you're going to enjoy it. It was really insightful for me, and it was a pleasure to get to listen to Geoff talk about things that he is a specialist in and that he's passionate about. And so I really loved this conversation. I hope you do too. If you're interested in working with Geoff, you can sign up for his global permaculture internship program, which is what I attended part of last year, and it is now expanding to southern Spain, which is very exciting. If you're in Australia, you could even stop by Geoff's community at Zaytuna Farm. Or if you want to learn more about permaculture, you can take his online permaculture design course. You can find him on YouTube, you can find him on Instagram and Facebook, and his website at discoverpermaculture.com. You can find Geoff everywhere. He was one of the early adopters of internet culture, you could say. I remember watching his videos taken back in the, 80s or 90s. It was one of my first exposures to permaculture. So Geoff has tons and tons and tons of material out there. So I encourage you to go find him. If you know about him already, then you are probably particularly excited for this conversation. All of the links to all of the things that I just mentioned will be in the show notes. And as always, be good to one another. Enjoy this conversation, and I will talk to you next time. Welcome, Geoff, to the Passing Through podcast. It is a real honor to have you here. I am really grateful for you spending some time with me today and taking time out of your busy schedule to chat. So thank you for being here.
It's good to be passing through on the Passing Through podcast. Yeah, I'm passing through myself. I'm in Jordan on my way to Australia the day after tomorrow. I've been in Hungary just a few days ago, so it's been a bit of a hectic month traveling through Ramadan in Jordan, then Hungary through education, and then back here for a check-in and out again day after tomorrow. But all good. That's what I do.
Yeah. And are you there for kind of completing the circuit of the global permaculture internship from last year?
It's part of it. I was teaching in and consulting in Hungary, and I've been consulting mostly in the Middle East. I haven't been teaching here. I had consultancy in Saudi Arabia and here in Jordan, and I have another consultancy going on in Qatar. So yeah, mixture. Mostly teaching in Hungary, not in Jordan for this period.
Okay. But Jordan is a special place for you because it's where you started your work with regreening the desert, which is something that I'd like to talk briefly about if you'd be interested, because I remember first hearing about that and thinking, maybe like many listeners, what? Like regreening a desert? Isn't a desert the end of an ecological cycle? How can you regreen a desert? What an incredible premise. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that, because apparently you can. You are proof of this.
Yeah, it wasn't so common when I kicked off 24 years ago with it all, and it was a shock for people. It was green in the desert, not re-greening. But anyway, it can take the re out of it. But you could put it in now because people realise a lot of deserts were green. They're easily depleted. They're very easy to damage. But most deserts had their own ecosystems and ecological function, and they were covered in vegetation of some sort, even if it was herbaceous or shrubs or small trees. And it was just that stress on Bedouin tribes and nomadic people made it easier and easier to damage desert landscapes. And we haven't really cared for them much. We haven't worried about them being damaged until recent times. So it just sort of became the norm. People thought of them as dysfunctional ecologies, where they're actually very functional and they're quite easy to understand and they're reasonably easy to repair. And now we have enormous, absolutely enormous restoration projects in desert lands. We've got massive areas in the Sahel being reforested, enormous areas of Saudi Arabia now. And we're using really high-tech stuff to map it and grow the trees appropriately so they have a better chance, and choose the species that are appropriate to do the initial hard work to get things back in order. So lots of technical assistance now, along with good design. We're continuing to shock the world with what we can do.
Mm. And for somebody listening, how long does it take to regreen a desert? Does this vary depending on the desert, I guess?
It does a little bit. It more varies on how good you are at regreening. If you use the right species, if you grow the right species of trees, you have to have very, very hardy trees, and often they're not necessarily endemic. They might be hardworking immigrants because they often repair damaged places. Hardworking immigrants. They do the initial repair work and the grunt work. So the right species planted the right way with the right design at the right time. Timing is very crucial because it's a very strategically specific climate because a desert is a desert. The evaporation is much higher than the rainfall. And that's why even in tropical deserts, you can have a meter plus of rain and it's still a desert because the temperatures are so high for most of the year. Where Northern Europe, a lot of Northern Europe only gets half a meter of rain, but it doesn't have any evaporation. Because of the cooler climates, it's always a balance between evaporation and rainfall that gives you the green. So there's a switch point in the year when it goes from the cooler time to the advancing springtime, when you've got to stop planting. And ideally, you start planting at the end of the hot, dry, when there is some chance of winter cooler temperatures and slight rains. The other thing you have to appreciate in deserts is that a desert is a flood waiting to happen, and it does regularly happen. Can be every year or every second or third year, but you get half the year's rain, half the annual rainfall in 4 hours. That's normal. You've got to capture that rain and soak it in away from the effects of evaporation, and that's a civil engineering design skill, really. You've got to be able to stop it, spread it, soak it, and grow on it. So the first thing you plant is the rain. The second thing is the trees after you planted the rain. After you planted the water, you've stopped the water flowing hard and fast as much as you can, and you spread it as far and wide as you can, and you soaked it in as quickly as possible, and you chased behind it with plant ups. It can be seed, it can be tree seed, and it can be all kinds of specific seed balls, clay balls with manure and micronutrients that break down when the water comes. Or it can be very well grown trees that have very great lateral roots, and they are not pot bound. They are ready to fire, and they're very hardy species. So if you get that right, you can be up in 3 years. You can have a micro canopy starting to shade the ground in 3 years, and it just gets better from there on in. The first summer's always the worst, getting past the first summer. We have specific irrigation now that you can bury underground that doesn't get broken down by roots, and it lasts for 10 years. And in 10 years, you should be done with irrigation. We have water harvesting earthworks that recharge the aquifers, because most of the irrigation water is going to come from aquifer, because that's the largest amount of available water for irrigation worldwide, everywhere, way more than surface storage. But you need to recharge it with earthworks. There's a combination of things, but the great figure is that the trees not only shade the ground and reduce evaporation, gel ground covers reduce evaporation because they're high in gel content, which is defined as a liquid that acts like a solid and reduces evaporation, resists evaporation. But shade, gel plants, and wind is reduced by the trees, all of which reduce evaporation. And the organic matter produced by the trees, no matter what species, hardy ones are always the starters, the organic matter reduces evaporation. So shade, wind, gel factor in ground covers, and organic matter all reduce evaporation. And the thing of addition then is condensation. The trees condensate. When there's no rain, and it's not much rain anyway, when you get any moisture in the air at change of temperature at dawn or just pre-dawn, you get condensation drip. That can add 80% to the rainfall. So precipitation is what you should measure, not rainfall. Precipitation is the water that touches the soil. And condensation on a vegetated desert can equal 80% of the rain. So if you get 100 millimeters of rain, which is quite common, 70 to 100 mil in a dry desert is all you get. If you get 100 mil, that's all you get on a bare desert surface. With a vegetated desert, you get 80 mil of condensation, making a total of 180 mil of precipitation. That is enormous. That is an enormous difference. There you get ecological services start to kick in, and you've got a different scenario. Now, at that point, you can bring back your grazing animals under very, very strict maintenance, a very strict management. So the cycles have to be large and long cycles. So now the positions of human habitat need also to be stretched because you can't walk home with such long cycles. So your settled Bedouin becomes a new human. He becomes a transitional settled Bedouin. He's not settled in one spot. A Bedouin has to have like 6 homes across the broad landscape, right? And they don't have to be tents, but they can be nice straw bale mud brick houses. But you can't keep walking home because there's too much damage in that event. So you've got to have kind of 6 temporary homes, semi-temperate homes, and that's kind of a beautiful scene if you think about it. I mean, these are the poor people of the world we usher into like permanent settlements, and they don't fit. You know, they'll actually feed their animals more than it'll cost in production of the animals just to stay who they are, because you can't expect them to be somebody else. This is who they are. They're embedded. They're heritage Bedouin, right? And I think it's terrible to try and make them another settled consumer. They can be a great addition to the planet, but we have to work out how we get them 6 homes in 6 separate settlements, and each one can have a food forest and a garden and different things. But it's a beautiful, large design scenario, and threaded through it is this gorgeous pattern of the biggest water harvesting earthworks on the planet. So if you want to go for the biggest water harvesting earthworks, they're in the large dry deserts. So all the boys that want to play with their big toys, giant 120-ton bulldozers, that's the gig. That's where it's going to happen. It's not in the tropics, not in the cold climates. We do little earthworks in comparison there. The big desert scene is a beautiful thing if you can time scout forward in your mind and see it. I'm trying to work with mapping programs and different things to show people these things in graphic form because we have that technology. So unfortunately, I'm pulled into the design graphic internet, high-tech studios a lot nowadays as I get older to try and explain to people how I compose these design symphonies, how I paint these masterpieces from the undercoat to the top coat, from the first set of instruments to the final crescendo of symphony. It's hard to describe in just words. We're a visual, digital animal today, and we need to see what it is that I'm trying to describe. It's not simple, but it's a very beautiful picture.
Yeah, thank you for all of that context. That as you were speaking, there was maybe 4 different tentacles that came up out of there that I wanted to explore, and maybe I'll talk about 3 briefly and see if any of them interest you, because the 4th one is AI, but I think that's maybe we could go there next. But the other ones that you said that you spoke about were, do you have something about AI?
Yeah, I'm just about to release the Geoff Lawton AI. I'm beta testing it now. Ask myself the questions to test it.
That's funny.
So one of my students, a Bulgarian, has asked permission to make a Geoff Lawton AI, a specific targeted AI. So they've taken every question I've ever answered in all my online teaching and all my Q&A questions and the way I've answered them, and they've fed it into an AI that you can ask any permaculture question and you can get Geoff's perspective with the AI answer. So just before I went to Hungary, I got introduced to my own AI. And I was asked to ask it the most difficult question you could ever imagine, So I asked it my own self, kind of. It's like talking to yourself. Can I remember answering this question ever? Like, what's the most difficult question I couldn't possibly answer, and how would have I answered it if I'd been asked? And I have been asked, and I asked about the porosity of windbreaks on a flat surface, and what height and what width and what distance between windbreaks in relation to the strength of the wind could you determine the parameters to stop damaging Ekman spirals in between the windbreaks. So the wind comes over a windbreak that's not built right, and it tumbles over itself. Its terminology is an Ekman spiral. It's an overturn of the wind, and the down thrust is quite damaging. So the idea of a windbreak is to lift the wind gently. 60% you can lift, 40% will always penetrate through the porosity of the windbreak and come out the other side quite managed. And then if you get the distance right, it'll lift from windbreak to windbreak, and you won't get any damaging impact between. It's not an easy thing to answer. I mean, it's. I knew I was asking myself a difficult question, kind of thing. I'm asking myself. It's like what I've answered before. Anyway, within 8 seconds, 4 pages came up of the way I've answered it. I was like, wow. So I read my own answers, and I was impressed. So I'm releasing an evergreen launch of my online course, which is not supported. So I've done an event course for many years and trialed and tested and improved my online education system. And now I'm going to release a much cheaper version, but you won't have support. You can join anytime, any day or night, 24/7, and you get the whole course downloaded at once, and you just work your way through it. But there's no teacher's assistance, except for you'll get the Geoff Lawton AI to help you. Supposedly, I mean, this is gonna happen yet, but you're getting news before it's released. This is secret stuff you're getting. You're the very first person to ever release it to the world. If you let this go out there, maybe we'll be in front of you, because it's the end of the month when we release. It's the start of May when we release the evergreen launch, so that people can
Wow.
get the course, the online education, which is pretty well refined now, beautifully. And I answer myself and 12 teachers' assistants an average of 20 to 25,000 questions every course. And we've documented them all and how we have answered them. And this is where the data's coming from.
Mm.
And such is the world we're in. We're in a crazy world. It's just mad. In every way it's mad. In good and bad. It keeps polarizing in both directions. It's getting worse and worse and better at the same time. And when it implodes into a perfect, peaceful abundance, I don't know, but it better hurry up, I think.
Yeah, I know this feeling.
Yeah, I'd like to see it. I'm 70, I haven't got that much longer to go. I'd like to see it, I'd like to see that implosion and how it ripples out into beautiful patterns of peaceful abundance. Because it's possible. It's definitely possible. But one end's kind of nuclear war and the end of the world, and the other one's like heaven on earth. So, we're going in 2 directions.
Yeah, that's something that I spend maybe a little bit too much time thinking about lately.
Well,
So
the thing with general AI and why the medical practitioners can't use it, and a lot of the science world, is that a general AI can't answer everything, and so it hallucinates. They call it hallucination. So it sends you an answer that's just absolute rubbish. Like it's just tripping. It's like back to the 60s and too much LSD. I was 16 in 1970, so I lived through the 70s. Can't remember a bit of it, But anyway, that's what I'm supposed to say. But
I would love to talk about that period. That would be
oh my
a really
goodness,
fun discussion.
you probably wouldn't. But anyway, it's very retro today, and maybe that was the hallucinations that brought us to where we are. But now we've got the AI hallucinating because it doesn't know how to answer some of the questions. So I think specific AI, permaculture AI, climate analog AI. We're very keen to work on climate analog AI. We're trying.
And what does that mean, climate analog?
Well, a climate analog is where you get the latitude that you're at, north or south of the equator, the altitude above sea level, and the distance from an ocean. I'll give you a similar climate to all those other locations around the world that are the same. Now you have to then add in a little more detail. Is that an east or west coast of an ocean, etc.? There are the 30 different climates on Köppen climate classification, and there's 5 main climates. So we're very keen to do a podcast. Actually, we're keen to start our own Geoff Lawton podcast.
That would be great.
And one of the features will be climate analog every week. So we'll pick a climate, and then we've got a spinning graphic globe we've made up, and we'll have all the positions on the world that have the same climate analog. And we can use Köppen climate data. And then we'll talk about what houses work in that climate, what toilets work, what gardens work, what animals work, what energy systems work, which are best, because some climates have too much cloud cover for solar and they need something else, etc. Which fruit trees work. What are the components we assemble for a potentially ethically designed science approach to permaculture for all the different climates? Now, you find some interesting things, like a lot of Australia lines up with parts of Turkey, and Kazakhstan lines up with Texas, and strange things like that, So the parts of New Guinea are identical to Colombia. You don't put New Guinea and Colombia together very easily. It's interesting because, like, the houses in New Guinea are nothing like the houses in Colombia, which are very Latino. There's been cultural influence over history that's changed people's common sense.
Yes.
They've styled the way they live to somewhere that's totally inappropriate to their particular climate. And they need to see, like, well, you've got 1,000, 2,000, 10,000-year-old cultures that have worked a lot of stuff out. And there's other places that's been dominated by an invading force that's forced their culture within the landscape. So it opens people's eyes. There's a lot of southern Australia is very similar to parts of France, and things like that. So it's an eye opener, and it allows people to engage no matter where they are. And say, "Oh, I didn't realise. This is fascinating. We can cross pollinate successes and failures, and make comparisons, which always gets people thinking out of the box. I mean, they've definitely got to think out of the box they're in at the moment."
Yeah. I love what you're talking about there, because I know you alluded to indigenous cultures earlier with the Bedouins, and now talking about how cultures have thousands and thousands of years of wisdom and knowledge and practice that is often eradicated or minimized by coloniality and these types of things, and we lose these elements of culture. So I like to discuss this phenomenon because it's important, because these ancient cultures didn't have AI, and yet somehow they were able to achieve civilization.
Often great health and longevity as well, and the dominating cultures that come in often rewrite their history. They may have
Yes.
recorded their history without reading and writing. They had other ways, songs and social sciences, which can be very accurate, but we don't give them any credit. It can be
Yes.
very old wisdom, and it's social science. So it's like, nah, it's like all flaky, and it's not. It's extremely accurate, and we've rewritten the history to our detriment because we're missing out. And some you can look through some extreme stuff. The Greenland Inuit were very successful, and the Danish came along and rewrote their history and are very unsuccessful. And now America wants to, move in and take it over. Like one failure to another. But it's quite shocking when you look through some of the rewritten anthropology. The Marquise Islands, when you read their true history, that anthropology has been rewritten, it was heaven on earth. And they moderated population. And they did some things really simply. It wasn't infanticide. They weren't killing babies to do it. They were very, very healthy. They had incredibly good food. And they managed their fertility rates very passively. And the warm water helped them because they realized that a simple method of contraception was getting in the warm water at night and doing your thing. with, warm salty water is a contraceptive. With other things like eating a lot of sweet potato and things like that. There's a whole documentation on what plants create contraception.
Mm.
So there was very simple things, but often it's extremely healthy and wealthy creates infertility. If you want to find the most infertile people on the planet, they're the ones that think they're wealthy, and they have massive social support. So there's a big social support network. So that's where you find the most infertility clinics. And the people who are most fertile are the ones that are in the most hardship. And the ultimate
Yeah.
fertility is a war zone. There's no
So,
infertile people in a war zone.
can
And
you
you
can you
don't want to use
elaborate
that.
on that point?
Sorry?
Can you elaborate on that last point? I'm not I'm not sure I
Well,
follow.
where you get people that are close to starving, or they're in a war zone, they have no trouble getting pregnant. There's no infertility. So you go to poor countries, there's no infertility clinics, there's no IVF. And then as you go towards the richer and richer and richer countries, the number of IVF clinics increase to the
Hmm.
point where there are the most in the countries where people are very well off and they have a great social network and they're very well provided for because they think that's wealth. That's often wealth at the expense of the planet. So it's potentially quite short term. So if we redefine wealth as an abundance of clean air, an abundance of clean water, an abundance of clean food, sensible houses, warmth, friendship, and community, you get the same thing, right? Well, I'm really wealthy. I've got endless amounts of fresh air. None of it's polluted. The water I can drink anywhere. It's absolutely gorgeous. There's fresh fruit everywhere. All the fruit and all the vegetables and all the herbs and all the medicinals are all free. I've got it anywhere I go. My houses are great. They cool themselves, warm themselves, catch their own water, and they're made out of natural materials and they're easy to replace and they last a long time. I'm warm. I'm not cold. I'm not hot. I'm just nice. I'm warm. I'm comfortable all the time in my house. And everybody's friendly. And I've got loads of friends and we've got loads of community and we all hang out together and sing songs and we're all happy all the time. Well, you're wealthy, aren't you? Isn't that what we're all want to be, right? That's what, billionaires are trying to make out of their money. But often you find billionaires are not wealthy. They're really unhappy and never satisfied and stressed out.
Some of the most impoverished people.
Yeah, they're falsely wealth. It's a wrong concept of wealth, and all the children think, well, I'm never going to be a billionaire, so I'm never going to be happy or healthy, or I won't ever be wealthy. So it's a wrong education, and we can all
Yes.
be healthy, wealthy, and live a long time, and have a good last 12 years. What we've developed is the last 12 years of our life are a nightmare.
Hmm.
The last 12 years, you're half alive, kept conscious with pharmaceuticals. You just got a last year took 12 years nightmare to look towards, and that's not how most humans are in natural situations. The last 12 years of your life's quite good.
Hmm.
You're active and you're aware and you're still learning and you've got lots of friends around you, loads of food and everything's set up to be comfortable and you haven't got any worries, sleep well. Yeah, gardening really helps because it's a great activity, has a
Hmm.
great byproduct. But that's a lot of research is out there about that stuff. And the sad thing is, we kind of tell the kids that we can only be bad. Like humans are the most damaging thing on the planet, and we just got to, you know, we've got a problem with too many unskilled people. We've got to turn it into fertilizer, otherwise they won't fit in the, laboratory fed 15-minute city with a chip in your head. I mean, that's the answer with the, WEF, the World Economic Forum, just wants us to own nothing, have digital currency, sit in a 15-minute city and behave ourselves and get online and do our job. And if you can't do that, then you're surplus to the system. You're going to be made into fertilizer. And robots are going to be out there, creating our laboratory food, sit up and shut up. Well, I don't think I don't think a lot of us are going to take it. So we might end up with two species of human, the ones who toe the line and the ones who go wild and get out
Hmm.
there and carry on living the abundant life. We could be the most and can very easily be the most beneficial element on the planet.
Yes.
We create new species every minute. We can speciate new animals. We can reverse the extinction crisis. We're already diverse. The world is more diverse than it's ever been. They're telling us a lie. They don't count the hardworking immigrants. They don't count. They don't count the invasive species. We could be growing more ecosystems every second. Our rivers could be cleaner and cleaner and more full of life. Our oceans could be cleaner and cleaner and more full of life. Our atmosphere can be clean, and all of that abundance creating all of our supply line will moderate our population quite nicely.
Yeah.
We don't have to be a nightmare. We don't have to, and that's what we tell our children. The problem is you. The problem is humans. We are the solution. And invasive species are the saviors of Earth.
Hmm.
I mean, we're told by the pharmaceutical companies that we should spray and kill and poison everything that we don't like. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
kill,
We
burn, and
live in a
poison is the answer to everything.
yeah, we live in a world that's overly sanitized and overly circumscribed by ideologies that no longer serve us. And I wonder if we look towards permaculture and we compost those ideologies and turn them into something fertile, out of which something beautiful can grow, the kind of future you're describing, where there is this abundance, there is this wealth, there is this community, there is this celebration, and life is something that is resacralized. It feels like maybe that's the kind of people care that we need and the kind of composting that has to happen in order to kind of wake people up.
Well, the process of that compost is to declare it kind of witchcraft and a really bad idea. When we went up against nature and decided we could improve nature with our scientific boxing and straight line percentifying and quantifying everything, we were very wrong. Right?
Yes.
We made the biggest mistake humanity's ever made in its intelligent history, if we have an intelligent history. I think we do. And we were pretty good at one time. And then we came up with this idea of industrialized agriculture. We gradually made it more and more industrialized. And that's the demon, right? That's the demon we have to realize is out there. And then we can use songs and social science to record the composting process. Will have to be locked in our psyche, as the way we remember it is with art. The art and science. The science is the art of survival, and art is a science of survival. And the composting process is continuing those stories of how that was such a bad idea. We need to set it up so we never forget it again, right? That the anthem of the future is don't ever forget that we made that big mistake called agrarian culture. The agri meaning agrarian, the soil, and culture meaning the improvement. We actually did the opposite. We destroyed our soils. Our base
Mm.
resource is our soils, and the energy passing through those soils is the sun's energy. Transaction that happens, the energy transaction that happens, is a glucose spike of base sugars and starches created by photosynthesis.
Hmm.
And we dishonored the plants and vegetation of the world in that process. I mean, those are the transactional elements. The trees and the plants have a transaction of the sun's energy into starches and sugars that create our soils and our soil life. And from that, everything else comes. Without that, we don't exist. And no matter how much of a laboratory you think you can create to feed us, in the end, it can't continue without the sun's energy. It just can't. Right? If you try and take the sun out of the equation, it's impossible. The base resource of energy is the sun, and our physical resource is the soil. And if we feed the soil life, we feed the world. If we stop feeding the soil life, we kill the world. And that's what we're doing. We're killing the world by not feeding the soil life. It's as simple as that. A project on the ground is not sustainable unless it's improving soil and building soil.
Yeah. And how do you feel? Are you feeling more or less optimistic as you look around at the state of the world at the moment?
Both. I'm feeling terrified in one direction and euphoric in the other. Like, there are the most wonderful things happening. We're using science in such wonderful ways. And the potential is more every second. And then in the other direction, it's getting worse and worse and more horrific at the same time. And of course it is, because the universe is a balance. Everything's in balance. And we have to come back to the center, right? Where the tipping points are closer together. There will always be some bad shit going down and some good shit being composted. It's just, it's just the way it is, right? But we've got to come back to an easier seesaw to balance. The seesaw's too wide. It's way too wide. A lot of technology we don't actually need if we start behaving properly, right? But we've got it already. But that doesn't mean all the bad stuff we've got we need to use. I mean, who the hell come up with the idea of using nuclear weapons? I mean, like, really? I mean, come on. You're going to split the atom and destroy the world because you're scared? Well, scared of what? I mean, really? And who decided to grow all our food with poison? A lot of it, like hormonal poison. You know, like, these are crazy things. Like, that's insanity. Like, I mean, we have resisted some of that stuff. The scientific community has risen up in arms and said, stop, you can't do that. You don't know the consequence. Like, we don't know the consequence of manipulating the weather. We can start manipulating the weather, but you can't stop it. We don't know when it stops. There's a big overrun. You know, like, you can start it raining. Can you stop it raining? No. You can stop it raining. Can you start it again? You can start a drought. Can you stop a drought? Like, we can start the rain. Can you stop it flooding somewhere and killing people? No, because there's a big overrun. The world's spinning inside an atmosphere with great big lumpy bits called mountains and great big low bits called seas and lakes and things, and they all have an influence. And it's a little bit hard for the computer to calculate it. And then the sun has a 15-year wobble on it. Like, nothing in the universe is running true. We think of it as circles and nice, like, spinning things, you know. But the spiral has a bit of a bump in it. Like, everything's got a bit of a pulse. We've got a pulse. We go up and down. I'm sure my pulse is rising with exciting conversations like this. So I'm buzzing a bit. So my pulse has gone up. Now, if I chill out and do a bit of yoga or relax, my pulse goes down. I mean, like, we can manipulate our pulse. But the universe out there has a few pulses. There are pulse stars. The moon has a wobble. We know that because of different tides. Then all the bloody moons out there and all the bloody planets and all the planets spinning around the sun and all the combinations of other galaxies out there. And then we're going around the Milky Way and we don't do a complete circuit for 200 million years. Now, who the hell's going to put this in the computer and come up with, oh, well, we can handle that little bump here and there? No. You can't do that. Like, you have to accept it's an infinite set of pulsy, bumpy things going on. Like, so chill out and stop trying to play God and just, like, ride the bumps here and there, you know, like let it roll a bit. So, some indigenous communities set up ways of measuring the weather and the sun cycles that were accurate for 1,000 years. And we don't honor that. Simple little shadow strikes of the sun through rocks, because they had time to do it. They weren't overloaded with technology. I mean, technology was supposed to give us more time. That didn't work, did it? We've
No.
got less time and less quality time. Every day it gets busier. I mean, now we're doing detox from technology. We're going to detox from mobile phone, and yeah. So yeah, we're more informed and less capable all the time. We're more and more informed and less capable. I'm sure we won't know how to boil water soon. We won't know how to boil an egg for sure, you know. And hardly anybody knows how to set a broody chicken on eggs. I've noticed. Your grandmother would really be upset with you about that one. I mean, a basic animal like a chicken and a basic food like an egg, which is a cornerstone of It's a foundation stone in a sustainability wall of food, right? An egg, a chicken egg. And most people don't know how to set a broody chicken. They don't even know how to keep an egg fertile for 30 days and how to set it under a broody chicken. They don't know how to tell a chicken's broody, and they don't know how long it takes to hatch the egg. I mean, well, you don't stand a chance. So we're less capable, but we know everything. We can Google it in a second. We can ask AI now. We don't have to Google anymore. Just ask AI; it will tell you.
I can't wait to ask the Geoff Lawton AI about broody chickens. It's going to be
Yeah, you go
amazing.
for it. It'll give you an answer.
And I'm loving this conversation. I would like to talk more, but I know you might have something coming up. So I wanted to do a quick time check and see how you are on time.
Yeah, I've got a natural swimming pool consultancy. We have a health centre that we're building, men's and women's gymnasium for health exercise, and a natural health apothecary, and natural cosmetics, natural
Mm.
organic makeup, and all these things which are popular in the Middle East without having an organic option. So it's part of our extension of Green in the Desert project, a whole new avenue for the women and men. And men doesn't mean that men don't get the benefit of this. And part of it is a natural swimming pool. I have a natural swimming pool outside here. I have many around the world, and I have to help the swimming pool builders to understand the basic engineering. They're not a lot different to a normal swimming pool in the building technique. It's all the same materials mostly, although we've made them with more natural materials, less concrete or no concrete, and just river
How does
stones.
it keep its structure without the concrete? I guess these big river
Well,
stones.
we build it like a dam, like a pond. The Americans call it pond, but we call it a dam in Australia. So it's built out of clay, and then we lay down a geofabric. So there's some artificial fabric, which is the fabric used in the nursery industry and some gardens. So we lay down a geofabric, and then we cover the whole thing with round river stones, which is very labour intensive, but looks gorgeous. And then watertight clay, like a natural farm pond or dam, holds it watertight. And then all the pipes and pumps that keep the air working. So you have a airlift system, like aquarium bubblers at the bottom of pipes, bubble up through the pipes, and in doing so, lift the water up the pipes and pull it through the aquatic cleaning system, which is a gravel section. There's almost the same equal to half the swimming area is a plant cleaning system, where the aquatic plants' roots are in gravel and the water is pulled through that gravel and they extract the impurities and keep the water nice and clean. So they're gorgeous. They're the swimming pools of the future. So we have a new one in the health centre for the ladies to swim in, and it's an educational process where people are afraid of living systems to swim in natural water with other things alive. And I'm drawing it up on the computer for our builder. But luckily, here we already have an example to show. So it's always easier when you've got something in front of people. Say, look, we've already done it. Here it is. It's working. And we've rebuilt the one here 2 or 3 times to make it easier to build. Because we have cheap labour here, much cheaper than Australia anyway, we've been able to refine and refine our natural swimming pool to make it easier and easier to replicate. So that's a mission that I've got to complete. And it would be great to get a second example connected to our project. I love natural swimming pools. I think they're one of the tipping points of people's decision to take on a new green life and try and supply their own needs. It feels like you've got a natural version of a luxury,
Mm.
like you've got a luxury that you never thought you'd have in a natural world. I average 20 watts of electricity to run a natural swimming pool. So 20 watts is like, you know, a reasonable sized light bulb. It's not a lot of electricity, so it's very easy to run them on a solar panel.
Mm.
And
And what other
you can,
maintenance do they require?
yeah, if you want to start putting waterfalls in and things like that, which people do, you may need more electricity. Water's heavy to lift. But if you're only pumping air, which when it bubbles up a pipe, will pour water behind it. It's called a bubbler lift pump. Used a lot for fluids all over the world. Even the oil industry uses bubbler lift pumps. It's not a lot of electricity to pump air. The difference in weight between air and water is significant. From an engineering point of view, that's pretty obvious. But try and pump a litre of air and pump a litre of water. There's a big difference in energy.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Anyway, all these fun things you get involved in permaculture. One minute we're designing people's toilets with reed beds, and the next minute we're designing luxury items like natural swimming pools, and then we're building, straw bale mud brick houses. I'm talking to you from a straw bale mud brick house, a classic example of a desert house here in the Dead Sea Valley. It's the last building we built on the project. All the internal walls are mud brick, and they hold the cool of the night, and the outside walls are straw bale, and it's gorgeous. It's a blend of Australian modern design features and traditional Arabic style together. It's kind of Arablish.
Fusion.
Yeah, it's a fusion of the two.
Yeah, it looks gorgeous from what I could see, and the outside as well. I mistook you for being in Australia when we first started speaking.
Yeah, the space of the rooms is very subtropical Australian, but there is a lot of sort of Middle Eastern style to it as well. And people love it. The large families here with lots of kids run riot through the house and through the swimming pool. And I'm just about to do a post actually of the swimming pool. I'll be putting it online. I've recorded it at dawn as it comes light, and now I'm going to record it full of kids in the evening going crazy. And
Nice.
and
That
talk
was
to
one of the. You'll have to send me the link so I could put it in the show notes, because one of the things I was immediately struck by was how your natural grace and our ability to articulate things as you just walk around a space with a camera. It's really a special gift that you have. So I'm excited to watch that video.
Yeah, well, I just try and be real. I mean, it's who I am. I'm not trying to be someone I'm not, So you either like my style or you don't. I can't do much about it. It is what it is, and I can only do what I can do and stay sane and as young as I can. But yeah, I've done this beautiful compromise because in the early morning before dawn, I got the camera really close to the water level, and you can hear it bubbling and churning, and there's nice flicky lights in the background that look kind of trendy in a straw bale wall around the pool because it's very private. And then I get the camera back and I record the dawn. And as the dawn comes, it comes lighter. The birds, which you can probably hear in the background in the food forest, just arc up. And you get this gorgeous, peaceful bubbling to bird song to the light arriving. And it's just all gorgeous. And then my next juxtaposed shot, hopefully, if it all works out with the editing, will be absolutely, children madness, like diving and creating and ducking each other and swimming to the bottom and trying to pick rings up and, all madness. So, the two sides of a natural pool is that I'd have one even if I didn't swim in it. I love watching the birds come in to drink and the animals. Everything comes to it. I mean, when they're drawn to it. It's natural water. And on many films, I might do it on this one. I'll drink a glass of it, right? Which terrifies the Americans. They're just like, you're gonna die, you can't do it. So I get a glass of water. I say it's so clean, I can drink it, and they go, oh no, it's like, yeah. You've got to terrify the Americans because they like it. Right? Easy to do as well, and then show the madness. So one is the kids go crazy and it's got to function. You've got to allow kids to express their craziness and blow out their energy before bedtime. And then the other one, you can drink it, it's natural. And then there's this gorgeous, peaceful scene where it's just like, oh my goodness, like what a beautiful thing. And yeah, it's a nice, iconic representation of the possibilities of permaculture. I never thought I'd be doing it. In the early days, people used to ring me up from consultancy, and the first thing they mentioned was the natural swimming pool. I used to almost drop the phone and say, I'll see you later. And now here I am going, no, time's right. This is the point in history. We all need one of these. It proves the point. Come on, join Finn. And people go, well, if I have one of those, I'll move to the country and set up my permaculture. But it was a tipping point. It's like, if really I can have a natural swimming pool, I'm in. There was a turning point in my permaculture consultancy when instead of rejecting the idea of natural swimming pools first, it's almost like the teasing carrot, carrot on the cake.
Yeah, you got to speak to people in a language they can understand. People like beauty and comfort and play and leisure. And you look at a beautiful pool and you hang out in it and you play in it, and it's like everything you're saying. It's wonderful, and it's water. It's elemental. It's one of these things. To me, I think of water as one of our greatest ancestors.
When
Where would
you
anything
dive
be?
in, you know straight away it's not chlorine or salt. When you dive in, immediately your body goes, yes, this is good. And you don't notice that when you're always diving into chlorine. I used to be a competitive swimmer. I was in chlorine twice a day. Red eyes and swimming like crazy as a competitive swimmer when I was up till I was 16. And like never had the comparison. We didn't have rivers we dived in. I grew up in England, and I didn't have that much. But like having that contained pool that you dive in, and you're used to the chlorine or salt content, and it's like, wow, there's this amazing neutrality. Like my body doesn't react. It's just like normal, natural, as the name says,
Yeah.
natural swimming pool.
I love that. It's triggering echoes of like images of being in a womb and some like little comforting liquid amniotic sac. That we are so connected to water. So being in a pool like that where it's totally absent of chemicals and there's other life in it, it sounds, you're making me wish I was in Jordan right now.
Mm. Well, in Hungary, we put in the second pond, the second dam. The top dam in the forest, we put the second one in down. And my son's just put another dam into Zaytuna farm. So Zaytuna now has 30 dams. We've gone from
Wow.
29 to 30. So he's just, he was doing a driveway drain on one of the shareholders' properties and hit 5 springs and ran out the drain and put a small pond dam at the end of it where he found white clay, which is always nice because you get lovely colours in white clay when it fills water. And that was yesterday. And this morning I get a photograph, it's already full. It filled up overnight with the springs. And this gorgeous little dam has a new body of water at Zaytuna Farm, Australia. So Hungary's got one and it's filling with springs, and Australia's got one. So the planet's got a couple of extra bodies of water doing their thing, adding to the wildlife interactions. And it's all good. We need a few million more every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we'll
But
have to.
luckily there are folks like you out there who are doing these things, whether it's in deserts or Hungary or Australia. So yeah, it's a great thing, and I'm grateful for your existence and all the people you've taught and all the work you've done and the things you continue to do. It's just really great to see you again and talk and connect. And yeah, I'm just feeling really thankful that this is the stuff you do.
We have Spain as well. Next year, September, new course in Spain. Spain adds to the international internship. So we'll have Hungary, Spain, Jordan, and Australia. Southern Spain, Andalusia. So we have a new site. And my first course is September in Andalusia. And that's going to be neat. First time for me
Yeah,
teaching in southern Spain.
yeah, that sounds great. Maybe you want to promote that a little bit here, because people might hear it and say, okay, global permaculture internship, that sounds cool. What exactly is it? Why is it in all of these different countries?
Well, you've been involved, and it's all on the same website. So
Okay.
it's up there already. Um, so our normal web connections have lots and lots of courses up there, and the Spanish course is one of them.
Okay, cool. So I'll link that in the show notes as well, so that people can go take a look and see if they're interested. And
Okay.
is there anything else you want to promote before we close out?
No, it's just normal stuff. Like I've got face-to-face courses, and I've got online courses, and I've got consultancy. I've now got lidar drone companies in Jordan and all through the Middle East. Now it's happened, Saudi Arabia, and all through the Middle East. Now we have drone companies that can give us LiDAR mapping. So LiDAR is going to take over as far as our mapping is concerned, and I'm learning more and more about how to translate my teaching ability through affinity software and mapping layers. So there's a whole new level of courses I'll be releasing on how to understand permaculture design through these online mapping techniques. They're gorgeous. There's such exciting new ways of translating our knowledge. So that's all coming, and hopefully I can just keep up with the game.
Yeah, I hope so as well. And thanks for being an inspiration for others and for passing through with me today. It was a treat. And
My pleasure.
yeah,
Anytime you want me to pass through, just give me a call. We'll do it again.
awesome. Thank you, Geoff.
All right, my pleasure. Thank you.